Sharkie Gamer here. So today we're going to take a look at the Belkin Nostromo SpeedPad n50 for PC. So this is a SpeedPad. So what is a SpeedPad? Well, essentially it's a keyboard replacement. So instead of using your full-size keyboard, you use a SpeedPad or a keypad, which is just a smaller version of the keyboard that only has a select few keys, specially designed for gaming. So this is the Belkin Nostromo SpeedPad n50. It's the first one Belkin released. Now, I don't actually have the packaging for this one, but I'll just put a picture up here so you can check out what the box looks like. And normally when you would get this, if you get a full box version, you would of course get the manual and possibly also an installation CD with it. But of course you can also download the drivers from the internet, as well as a PDF manual. So let's go into some features. First off, like I mentioned before, this is a keyboard replacement. So essentially, instead of using a full-size keyboard, you pick one of these up, because it's more focused, you don't have all those extra buttons to get in your way, and you can completely customize it to the way you'd like, depending on what game you're playing. So with the SpeedPad n50, it connects via USB. If you plug it in without installing the Nostromo software, it'll just pick it up as a standard game controller. But if you install the software, that's when you can go in, customize it, set up profiles, etc. Now going into the shape of the controller, it's shaped so it fits your hand quite comfortably. You can see it's got a palm rest there. So when you have it sitting on your desk, you would simply place your palm over it, and of course you can reach all the buttons in the front, and you can reach the D-pad on the side. Now the palm rest here is actually removable, so you can remove that and just use a lower. So if you don't like the higher palm rest in the center there, you can just remove that and just use it with a lower palm rest. So it does make it quite considerably lower, and of course if you want it back on, you can just simply clip it back on. And you can see it's quite considerably higher. So if you like it to fill your palm a bit better and give you a bit more support, keep the palm rest on, but if you don't, you can remove it and of course have that lower kind of setting. So it's pretty customizable in that way. Now having a closer look at the actual buttons here, you've got 10 action buttons at the top here, all numbered 1 to 10, and the center ones here actually have arrows on as well. And you can see them there, they are a little bit faint, they're in like an orange color. So those you can use as your directional arrow keys if you wanted to. To the left here, you've got 3 LEDs. These just indicate your modes, what they call shift modes, so you can set up various profiles. By default, it'll be set on a black profile in the software, but then you can set up red, green, and blue shift modes. So essentially, you can set up 3 profiles that you can switch between. Of course, you do have to set one of the keys to actually switch between those modes, because by default, it's not actually set up. In the center here, you've got what looks like a scroll wheel, but it's actually not a scroll wheel. So it doesn't actually keep control, it actually stops. So you can move up there and move down. So it's more like a slider control, almost like a throttle on a flight stick or something like that. So you can assign an axis to it, so Z axis, X axis, etc. to do something in particular. And on the side here, you've got a D-pad. It works just like a standard D-pad. It's not necessarily the best feeling D-pad I've felt, but it passes the job. It does what it intended, and you could use the D-pad to move if you preferred it, or of course, like I mentioned before, you could use the standard directional keys. But again, it's up to you, because in the software you can customize what all these buttons do. You can assign a special command to the D-pad, to the slider, as well as to the 10 action buttons. And of course, you can select different profiles. You can save the profiles as well. So say you've got a ton of games and you want a different layout for each game, then you can go through, add a whole bunch of profiles and save them, and just load the profiles in when you need them. So it's very customizable. You can also set up macros as well. So if you want a custom set of commands to follow out when you press one key, then you can definitely set that up in the software too. So how does it work when you're playing with it with a game? Well, it works okay. It doesn't work fantastic because, of course, by modern standards, there's been so many SpeedPads and other keyboard replacements released by both Belkin, because they've released sequels to the n50, as well as other companies, that this kind of feels outdated, and it does feel like it's almost missing functions. Because it's got the minimal. It's got like 10 buttons, you've got a D-pad, you've got a slider control here, while most of the more modern ones will have about space bars, they might have an Alt and Control, they might have other buttons to switch modes, etc. So this is pretty much light. It's just got the bare minimum in terms of buttons and commands. So by today's standards, it does feel outdated. But of course, at the time this was released, it would have been brilliant, because there weren't many of these around when this came out. So it was kind of standing on its own. There were a couple of others around the same time that sort of different companies made. But of course, there weren't many, and so most people saw it as a good way, instead of having a full-size keyboard, you get something that's dedicated for your gaming experience, and of course it's small. So if you had a gaming laptop, or say you were taking your computer to a LAN party or something like that, this would be a small option to take with you, so you don't have to lug around your giant, large-size keyboard. So it was a solution in the time. So at the time, they were very popular, and of course they just became more popular, and they're still popular today. All the modern ones are still popular, and they are a good idea. They're a way that you just have a keyboard dedicated to your gaming needs, instead of having a giant keyboard and accidentally pressing buttons. This rules it out completely. And in general, they tend to be a little bit more comfortable to use, because they've got that kind of more ergonomic shape. So when you rest in your hand there, it's more comfortable, it's better for your wrist, better for your hand than just playing on a normal keyboard. So it is a bit more ergonomic in that means. But again, using one of these things is more personal preference. So if you prefer a large size keyboard and you go to one of these, you might like it, you might not. And the N50 in particular, with this one, like I said, is outdated. You don't see them too often to buy these N50s. You can still get them, and when you do see them, they are pretty cheap, because basically it's outdated. No one wants these ones these days. They all want the new SpeedPads. So while you can get these, there's probably no need to get them unless you want something ridiculous cheap, but even then, you can probably get for $20 more or something, you can probably get the newer versions. So it's probably not worth buying unless you're a collector like myself. But hey, they are a cool thing, it worked well, and at the time these things were very popular. And I think they've got a pretty cool design anyway. So yeah guys, that was the Belkin Nostromo SpeedPad n50, a cool SpeedPad that kind of started Belkin's line of SpeedPads. So it's a cool kind of look at the past and what they developed at the time. Anyway guys, thanks for watching. I'm Sharkie Gamer. Please like and subscribe, helps out a lot guys, and thanks again for watching.